This is Darkanus, and this is a little bit of a follow-up video to my last one. I know it doesn't seem like much of a follow-up video, but this goes to the conceptual theists. This book, and namely the Christian conceptualists. I found the Gospel of Thomas, in a very literary sense, to be a very changing. It gives me a very deeper understanding into the entire book, all the books of the Bible, how they all relate, and I can actually see a pretty decent. Well, I'll go through it and show you how I got to my conclusion, and give you my conclusion at the end. After I've already gave you everything. Okay, in the beginning, right here. When he was 5 years old, he was playing in a narrow part of the rush by a stream, gathering the flowing waters into the ponds, and immediately they were made clean, and ordered these things with a single word. This is showing his power. This first part is pretty much just showing his power, and showing how he was being very much the brat, just like you'd expect Yahweh of the Old Testament to be. And then, as you continue to read, I mean, he does some pretty horrible things, like down here. Here, Jesus calls a kid a godless, brainless moron because he parted the ponds and the waters, and for that he made him dry up. And immediately the child withered up completely. So we can see Yahweh here just fine. As you continue to go along, you start reading the story and how it fits into the rest of the books of the Bible, and where it would be in relation, considering this should be the first book of the New Testament, considering it is on the infancy of Jesus. And into some of his little bit later years, teenage years. And as you read this, you begin to see a transition that Yahweh has an epiphany. That the way that he is talking about, the way that he has acted before now, was not perceivably understood by people because of the way that he acted. So instead, he finally had a revelation of what I think to call idealism, or individualism. I'm sorry. And as you read through this, that becomes more and more profound when he goes from killing people and fighting back against his teachers here, and talking about Alpha. If he could tell him, if the teacher could tell him all about Alpha, then he would tell him all about Beta. This is very much ignorant Yahweh. Very, 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 very. And then later, a little bit later, Jesus starts saving people. He goes from hurting them and seeing the pain that he puts people through by acting like this. In chapter 7, this is a very relevant statement right here. When you get to this, you'll understand that Jesus was literally stopping. Instead of killing everybody for their ignorance, he was starting to explain things. Now, I think that if this had actually happened, that he would have given us things like germ theory and things like that. But you could still see this in a conceptual way, not in a literal way. That argument was just for the literalists, because I know they're going to hate on this video too. But I recommend this read for anybody. It's not really worth anything for atheists that are fighting literal, that are debating literal theism. I think that really needs to be taken care of from within, and that we need to engage the conceptual theists, because I think they far outweigh the literal theists. I think they do, and it just brings, and then the extremes just bring on the extremes. Oh, and I'm rambling now, but you see, Jesus ended up doing some really good things, what they called signs, and things that he did that were really good. And then just read over the entire thing. It is a beautiful story. It fits in, and it can actually change your perspective of Yahweh and Jesus, or Yeshua, however you want to call it, however you want to say his name. I mean, he even does things like resurrection of a dead child, and then the last one. This one's kind of confusing. The chapter 19, Jesus and the temple. It kind of ends on a little bit of a confusing note, kind of. But in the end, it's basically telling him that Jesus is continuing to grow in wisdom. It's right there. That he was not as wise when he was born, and that God is actually progressing. He's increasing. He's becoming better. And I think this is a nominal point to show when we're talking about the changes in morality and in our logic. I don't have a problem with conceptual theists a whole lot. I actually find their company quite good. But I see very few of them, because I don't think they're as outspoken, because they're afraid to get smacked on by their extremist side. And I'd really like to be able to engage some more conceptual theists. It doesn't matter which religion you want to talk about. I know quite a bit of Norse and Celtic mythology, Roman mythology, Buddhism. I try to stay addressed on these, because I went through a period when I was younger when I just went through a whole crapload of religion, so I retained a lot of information, and that's why I'm the way I am today, because some of these things obviously can't be true, and these theist arguments, they don't have to be true on a literal scale, but if we take the concepts out of them, we might find some place for them in reality. And that's the message that I want to get across with this video. And to open up the theist minds a little bit more on the establishment, because the establishment took this book out because this basically teaches that there is another way to being saved through the teachings of Jesus. You don't have to even believe that the establishment wants you to believe it is on the sacrifice, but it's his teachings. One can make a very good argument for it was his teachings. And the Gospel of Thomas was a very, very good thing for that. It had his teachings very, very well. Remember Thomas the Doubter? He took down, seems like, very decent records, and considering, and I'll provide links for all this, that this might be the most early document around between between the 1st and 2nd centuries when this thing showed up. So it would be closer to, in time, it's definitely the closest document that we have to the time that it was said Jesus existed, which doesn't make it primary source. It's still secondary source, but it's still closer, so the chances of the time for the Chinese whispers to affect it too much only stands for maybe 3 generations at this, 3 or 4 generations, considering when this was, when people died back then. Anyway, this is Darkanus. Think more for yourself, and not always what everybody tells you. Look into subjects deeper, because there is more beauty to be found in the conceptual sense a lot of times, and more reality even in the conceptual sense, than what is literal. This is Darkanus signing off, saying, do your research and make your own decisions. Huh? Yes, I ramble. Now, what the hell?